I want to start off today's show with one simple question. Are you ready for a miracle? Now, I bring up that particular video because over the weekend, Gabe Newell actually spoke up and made a post on Reddit about the current tournament, the current Valve Run tournament that's happening in Shanghai, the Shanghai Major, which is a big Dota 2 international event, and one of three that Valve is now actually, the publisher, is now actually sponsoring. It started last week. Today, right now, is actually the finals, the grand finals that are happening, and it's been a little rough. Even now, if you Google search Shanghai Master, you'll find out that that they're having issues with lag. The stream's lagging. They lost a keyboard. Everything's been delayed, which is not typical of a big event like this. So, a little bit of backstory on what's happened. Shanghai Masters started last week, and the publishing company Perfect World ran into issues with the production. Valve brought on their host, James 2GD Harding, who proceeded to host over the entire Shanghai event. He was the main host. He was the guy who was bringing all the talk, talking about bringing in the panel, getting the panel to talk, bringing on events. He had a whiteboard that he brought with him and proceeded to entertain people during the show. Due to the issues that Perfect World was having, 2GD had to improvise a lot, but he had prepared for this and started bringing in events such as put your dream team together and so on and so forth. However, 2GD, who is a popular and long-time standing personality in the Dota community, who has hosted other events for Valve, he's a little free-spoken and got a little edgy on stream. This wasn't exactly viewed in the warmest light by Valve and by Gabe Newell, otherwise known as GabN, who is the owner and founder of Valve. So after the first day, a tweet went out from 2GD stating that he would no longer be hosting. Going forward, he would no longer be hosting the Shanghai Master. This was after the first day and a half of hosting, and for an event that was just riddled with technical failure. And he would go forth to talk about and make tweets about what was happening in the Reddit community. The Dota 2 community was outraged. There was posts everywhere about, I can't believe he's been kicked. He was literally the only thing saving the show, so on and so forth. Just the community rallying behind him. This prompted GabN to come out and make a post. Now, this is Gabe Newell's account on Twitter, or not Twitter, Reddit, and he came out to the Dota 2 community, which is a huge subreddit, and ended up posting things such as, we've had issues with him in the previous events, yada yada, and claiming that they won't be working with James again, and as you can see, they also fired the production crew behind the Shanghai Master. Now, this is a bit interesting, because as far as I know, this is the first time that a host has been fired since the coming of all these esports companies pushing to be professional, pushing to have big money and big names behind their games. This is the first time I know of that one of the giant gaming companies have come out and fired the host halfway through an event. Not even halfway, in the beginning of it. Not only that, but this kind of backs up the whole idea of professionalism in esports, right? which is to me the big wraparound around this is this James 2GD. He's done esport events before. Like I said, he's got a huge repertoire of a huge resume of hosting other events and being an active member in esports communities. He's even developing a game for himself. And of course, he would go on later to post his thoughts on the issue. And they're still up on Reddit. And I suggest, if you're interested more into this, to go and check it out, because it's a good read, hearing both sides of the story. But that brings up an interesting case on where do we draw the line between professionalism and moving forward in an ESPN-style manner in the esports world, between that and staying true to our grassroots, which are edgy commentators like 2GD James, and not wearing suits, wearing casual clothes, and being able to say not the most politically correct terms on broadcast, on live. These are things that happened during the Quake era, StarCraft era, moving forward, even up until about the time that Riot Games made the big push to be professional. The other thing is, Valve, and if you look at Valve TI1, TI2, TI3, if you go back and watch those, you can see the production value increasing as they go through, but you can also see the professionalism all the way up until the recent one, which was incredibly professional, it was well done, but it was also very suit and tie and gimmicky, and the community had a hard time dealing with that, some of it anyway. And this issue with James is just the latest in the series. Which funny enough prompts Gabe Newell to come out, which means also that Gabe Newell has spoken more about James 2GD than he has about Half-Life 3, his own game, the game that made Valve back in the 90s. But besides that, it's created a big uproar. The community's behind James. The community doesn't want to move in a professional way. They don't want, from my understanding of it, and from what I've seen in Reddit, in social media sites, on Twitter, the community doesn't want to move to an ESPN super professional. They want to stay in their roots. It's what we as gamers, we want generally. That being said, Valve wants to push this in a professional way. That's how it gets sponsorships. That's how it grows the game. That's how it gets it on national television. I mean, how are you going to be able, in Valve's eyes, how are you going to be able to see a bunch of people wearing button-up Hawaiian shirts and giant graphic tees on national television? That doesn't promote a serious air around it. And in order for it to grow, in order for it to get the big name sponsors like Microsoft or Apple or Chrysler, Dodge, it needs to have a professional air around it, right? So for Valve, Valve wants to push this in a very professional way, which means that there's no room for people who are making sexual jokes on stream. If you go and watch some of the stuff that 2GD did, it wasn't incredibly outlandish. We've definitely seen worse. It wasn't exactly G-rated, maybe even PG-rated. Some of the skits and some of the gags they did, and just the way that he communicated with the panelists. And it would later go on that, funny enough, later on, and I wish I had a clip for you later on, as the show progresses, it would go on to be making electrical chair jokes about the host seat as they continuously swapped hosts for the rest of the event. And like I said, this event hasn't been exactly great for Shanghai if we even take 2G out of the picture. We're also suffering from a huge amount of failure from the production value. So, to me, it's surprising that Valve just went a clean slate, firing 2GD, James, firing the production company without giving them more time to improve, more time to get their stuff together. The production company less so as much as James, who had been a host before, who had worked with them before. So right, and as chat says, thank you for speaking up. Valve is taking it. The community doesn't want to see it being taken that way. They don't want to see it go corporate. They don't want to see it production value increase, but also at the cost of the uniqueness and the personality behind the Dota scene. It's Dota started as a development mod for Warcraft 3, made in the probably some dude's basement back in the early 2000s, and turned into a big international event. But it was never had the professionalism up until recently that other esports have or other sports have. And this ended up in the unfortunate 2016 2GD blowout at the Shanghai Master, right? So, going forward, excuse me. So what does this mean for Valve? This is one of 3 major events that Valve is now doing in addition to the international event, right? The big end of the year tournament that had the $14 million prize pool last year. Valve can't afford to continue to make these small mistakes. They have to either go through and actually support the people who are hosting these events and hire and properly vet the production companies, or they're going to continue to have issues like this. Now, and this goes more so farther from Dota 2, they also have a CSGO scene, right? CS, Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And Counter-Strike Global Offensive is made up of a bunch of rough personalities as well. They're not politically correct. They're not afraid to share their opinion. They're not afraid to go on stream and be like, oh, that guy is a dumbass, right? They're not afraid of that. And the CSGO community loves it. They love it. They love the drama that sparks off of it. But so if Valve is willing to step in and kick James 2GD off of the Shanghai Master, or Shanghai, I call it the Shanghai Major, if they're willing to kick him off the Shanghai Major, what's going to stop them from kicking off their CSGO analysts and whatnot? Now, granted, a lot of the CSGO tournaments are still individually run. They're not run by Valve themselves. So there's a little bit of giveaway there, luckily. But it's an interesting concept, right? How far is Valve going to start to extend their reach and the drive to push us into a professional esport? On the same side, at the same level that we have Riot doing with the Primetime League and the LCS and whatnot. So this moves me into my next. You're not wrong. Politically incorrect. That is what's unique about that is what's unique about any of Valve's games, right? Is they're very rough communities. So and that's the issue, is that LCS has been pushed into a very, Riot's LCS has been pushed into a very professional setting and is very gimmicky, and they've come out and said that they do their scripts beforehand for the LCS, which what you get on even the Shanghai Major right now, that's happening right now, is very organic. It's not written up. They might have come up with topics and they might have come up with skits to do, but they're all very freeform and ad-libbed, right? Unlike what we have going on with the Riot side of things, where some of it is, but you can tell that when Dash is going out there and writing, it's all the same questions. It's all prepared for when the Immortals win, let's ask them how their lane phase went, which you don't necessarily get in the Shanghai Master. Even 2GD, what was so great about him was he was having these analysts go down and break apart different members from different teams and how they would form their own perfect teams. And things got a little out of hand, but it was still a good topic, and it was still very improv, and it got the analysts going, and it got everybody thinking, and it was absolutely fantastic in theory and in concept, and a lot of it in execution. So, but this comes up with a perfectly, this wasn't the best thing to happen. Drama-wise, the issue with Valve and the issue with Gabe Newhall speaking out, I hope that they take it, that they see the Shanghai Master and they see the community outrage and they see whether or not their own personal feelings on how